So by issuing this legal statement, this certificate, it legally allows the former president to prosecute Downer in a private prosecution, but the NPA stressing it believes that this is an abuse of the private prosecution process and that it will support Downer if he is, in fact, prosecuted. JP Venter is an attorney, senior associate at Ulrich, Roux and Associates. JP, good afternoon to you. We've seen a lot of talk about private prosecutions over the years. I'm trying to remember one ever being successful. I certainly can't remember a prosecutor being prosecuted.
Good evening. Oh, good afternoon, Stephen. Yes, indeed, there has been very few successful private prosecutions. Just thinking off the top of my head, I think more or less two in the history of our country that was successfully prosecuted. And also, I can't think of any prosecutor that has been successfully prosecuted in a private prosecution.
I mean, it's a very strange thing to happen, and it's also something that someone who's being prosecuted would do. You try and put as much pressure on the person leading the prosecution against you. This may explain why the NPA is being so serious about its support for Downer. It has no choice. It must do this.
Indeed so. An accused person will use whatever tactics he can to do, as we have seen in the past, especially with our previous president, Mr. Zuma's matter, to delay the matter. And this might be one of those tactics as well. But unfortunately, he will have to show that he has the legal standing to bring this application at the end of the day, even though the certificate has been issued by the prosecuting authority. They do not have the right to question his locus standi to bring this application at this stage. That is something that the accused person, Mr. Downer, will be able to do at the trial itself, before the commencement of the trial. And that is when Mr. Zuma will have to show that he has a material and peculiar, or substantial and peculiar right, and that he has indeed been injured in this alleged offence that Mr. Downer has committed, before a private prosecution can commence in this matter.
So, I mean, strangely, if the NPA allows a prosecutor to be prosecuted for a case that they're actually involved in themselves. I mean, every crook in the country will do this, right? So is the NPA going to give a couple of its lawyers to defend Downer in court, so the NPA would suddenly be playing the defense role? I mean, again, it's extraordinary.
It is. I can't see that the NPA will provide defense lawyers. I think Advocate Downer will either be in a position to defend himself, or he will instruct private attorneys or advocates to represent him. The DPP or the NPA is not in the game of representing accused persons, so I think that will be very irregular for them to appoint representation for Advocate Downer in this matter.
If you want to do a private prosecution, so I realize that the legal certificate from the NPA saying we are not going to prosecute is very important. That makes sense. The state should be doing prosecutions, not private individuals. But when you go to the judge and you say we're now going to prosecute this case, is the judge able to interrogate the case at an early stage and say, yes, there's a strong case, or no, there's not?
Look, like I said, first of all, there's certain hurdles that Mr. Zuma will have to pass. And that is that he has jurisdiction to bring this. And this is where the court will look at preliminary at the facts of this matter, see if indeed he has suffered damages. Our courts have held in the past that it must be actual damages, not an apprehension of damages or infringement of rights that might in the future cause damages. They must currently at that stage be actual damages. And the court will have a preliminary look into that. Obviously, the court will not be privy or does not have insight into all the evidence that needs still to be led, and the court can't make findings on the merits of the case at the preliminary stage. Otherwise, the judge might have to recuse himself if he's already made up his mind about the matter. But to answer your question, the only part in the beginning that the court will give attention to is whether he has locus standi to bring this application or to prosecute.
And the other point, of course, I mean, if the private prosecution of Downer fails, so if, for example, hypothetically, Downer's dragged to court, it takes a long time, we know court proceedings can, and in the end, the judge says that the public prosecution fails, does Downer have any recourse against Zuma for putting him through all of that?
Indeed. With a private prosecution, there's always, at the end of the day, there's costs involved. And whether it's a magistrate or judge can make a cost order at the end of the day. And it's not automatic that Advocate Downer will be awarded costs, but the judge can award him costs, either his full legal fees or a portion of these legal fees at the end of the day that he had to incur to defend this matter.
J.P. Fenter, thank you. Attorney, Senior Associate at Ulrich, Roux and Associates. I mean, I've seen some complicated legal cases in my time, but this is about to get as complicated as it gets. J.P., thank you. Well, moving further.